Okay, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Glad that you hung on. Appreciate your, I already said, thanks for your patience. I'm not going to repeat myself. That would be ridiculous. My name is Anthony Horvath. I'm the host of the Gutencast. Tonight we're going to be talking about Antony Flew and his legacy. Let me just do my regular sound check. How do I sound? Yeah, I'm sounding great. Sounding great as usual. I got it really nailed these days. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, etc., etc. And now let's talk about Antony Flew, and I'll come back and do a little bit more later here. Oh, he's not supposed to be on here yet. Let's hide him. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So, if you don't know who Antony Flew is, this is going to be sort of a hard conversation. But my guess is, especially if you're finding this video later, it's because you do know who he is. He was a pretty prominent atheist philosopher. You can see the period there. He died in April of 2010, but he was most active from, I don't know, the 50s through the 1990s, I would say. Although he had a book. I cannot believe I didn't get my Antony Flew books ready. That was embarrassing. Anyway, I could have checked it while we were talking here to see the publication date. Of course, I could also do a control find and find it that way. But he was an interesting guy. Like, he's the old school kind of atheist, the one that was respectful of other viewpoints. He didn't think that Christians were morons, that sort of thing. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go on with our guest, the captain. But I'm going to share my part of the story because something really remarkable happened with Flew. One of the things that he said that he would always do is follow the evidence. And in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, there came the rumor circulating in the apologetics realm. Apologetics is the defense of the Christian faith, and among atheists as well, that Flew was moderating his position and changing his mind on certain things. At the beginning, I don't think anyone really thought he was close to becoming a Christian. I mean like around 2000 or so. But by about 2005, people were really starting to wonder if maybe this guy's come all the way around. Well, at the same time that was happening, let me move this over so you can see his face here. There you go. At the same time that that was happening, you had the rise of the, quote, new atheists. I love the new atheists. They're my favorite. Let me just say, to give you some perspective on the new atheists, it was because of them that I had to create a folder on my computer called Crazy People Who Want to Kill Me. And I told my wife that if anything were to ever happen to me, to check that folder first. It was so weird how hostile they got about just about anything, and they were ferocious. And I don't know. This is not an episode about the new atheist, but let's just say they were very, very confident in their position to the point where they thought that if you had an opposite uh, position, in particular within if you were a Christian, then you weren't just wrong, you must be evil. In fact, Richard Dawkins has a quote out there, and this is about evolution, but I think it captures it. Something to the effect that if you don't believe in evolution, you must be insane, crazy, or wicked. But I refuse to consider that last option. Something like that. And he was kind of one of the acolytes for the new atheists. In other words, they felt that they had the intellectual high ground, and it was so indisputable that if you did dispute it, there was something wrong, not with just with your brain, but with your heart. You were a danger and a menace to society. So if you can imagine that being like the flavor of internet discourse from 2000 to 2005, you will appreciate what my life was like, because that's all I did. I was right in there with it. Good times. Brings back memories. But enter Antony Flew, who, while not by any means the poster child for the new atheists, he had clout. There was no denying that he had clout. And if he started to wobble, if the great Antony Flew started to wobble, then who knows where it might end, I guess. I mean, we could try psychoanalyzing it. So I'm telling you my story so that I can get into the later parts of it. So here's what happened. I went to an event where Gary Habermas, who's a Christian historian, he was a professor at Michigan State. I'm not sure if he's still there or not. Who knew Flew personally, and I said, Dr. Habermas, he Flew's your man, and there's all this talk about, he might be equivocate, like he might be on the edge, or something. What gives? And he told me, well, just write to him. And I said, well, just write to him. I said, oh yeah, he's a gentleman. He replies to anyone. He'll reply to everyone. So Habermas gave me his mailing address, and I wrote him a letter, and I have that letter here. Sorry, because of my technical issues, I'm just a slight bit behind the curve here. But I think it'd be fun if I show you the letter. So give me just 1 second here. Here you are. So the first paragraph there fairly sums up what I've already told you. What the thing that I really like about this letter is in the second paragraph here. Excuse me, third paragraph. It concerns me that it may be that your views may never be presented and explained, leaving many to go down a path. Often these, not you, have tread it belligerently, I might add, forged by one who now has hesitations about that path. It is not meant to be insulting when I say that you are no spring chicken. It would be nice to have a formal defense and statement on where you now stand, written by you and not later historians. So, I don't know who talks to a famous atheist by saying, "Well, you're no spring chicken." You can't see me waving my hands here a little bit. It was kind of absurd. So I have his letter here, and the reason why I'm showing you the text in a minute, I'll show you some of the images of it. But his letters were really, actually, the handwriting was really hard to read. So this is better for this format. So he replied not too long after it. See what my letter was, December 7th. He replied December 18th. Do I have the, yep, okay. Thank you for your friendly letter. Fortunately, though I am 83 and will DV, I don't know what this is, be 84 in April, my only afflictions are arthritis in my left leg and nominal aphasia. I can't remember names. So that's going to play a role here in a minute. I cannot presently give you an adequate answer, but I can assure you that a book will be appearing in the spring of 2007, which will answer your question and do a lot more, which will very positively please you. And now he goes through and he says what the book's going to be about. It will tell the story of my unbelief when I began at Kingswood. It'll go on through the rest of my life. This is where I'm at right here. Recording all the various religious controversies in which I've been involved in, ending up with me being a deist. So that's kind of, that's a big step. That's a revelation that he has moved from atheism. He's not fully Christian at this point, but in his own words, he's saying at minimum, he's a deist, right? And believing, like Einstein and many other great physicists, in the existence of God. Just kind of skip here. Actually, I shouldn't skip it. I'm right here. What this book will also contain is a great deal, indeed by far the larger part, from Christian writers, from a Christian writer maybe. I would most strongly recommend to you the contributions of the present Bishop of Derby. That's not who he means, most likely, but I remember the aphasia comment, who offers the most powerful case for the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus, which I have ever seen. Okay, so that's probably all I'm going to say about that. We did have an exchange. He sent me 3 letters total. So he wrote this to me before anyone knew that he was going to be writing a book at all. Suppose I need to move this here. In the meantime, people were, the rumor mill kept going, and finally the book did come out, and this sent shockwaves. Trying to get this moved over here a little bit. And the gentleman that you see there in the corner there is a fella named Richard Carrier, and he was one of these new atheists. And maybe we'll say a few words about him. But the funny thing is he also sent a letter to Antony Flew, like with a whole checklist of questions that he demanded an answer about these things. And when he got his letter, he was very triumphant. And the book had nothing to do with what Carrier thought he was going to get. So just as a illustration here. Right here. So he said, Carrier, in reflecting on this, says, curiously absent from the entire book is any discussion of deism or the God of Thomas Jefferson, which Flew repeatedly emphasized in his letter to me. So in other words, Carrier was asserting that the book was basically written by Christians. It did not reflect Flew's real beliefs. And that's just the way it was. It was a fraudulent thing. You could just dismiss Flew altogether. But the thing is I had my own letters, and in my letter, if you will remember, Oops, wrong button. He specifically had said what kind of I'm losing all my tabs here. He explicitly says that it would be the deism in the line of Einstein, which the book did. And his letter also affirmed that it would be written by a Christian. And at the end of the book, just as Flew had said, there was this treatment of the resurrection, just as Flew wrote in his letter. So now the thing is, there's a whole lot of heat about all this. And it's really hard to convey all of that heat, to tell you the truth. I gotta get my window under control here. It's driving me nuts. Because I want to find. I just had the letters ready to go. You all saw them. Where did it go? It's right here. Where is it? Oh, I know why. Good grief. It's because I minimized it. Okay. So there you see it right here. Ended up with me a deist believing like Einstein. And that's what was in his book. And here at the end, the contribution of the present Bishop of Derby about the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus. In other words, the contents of my letters aligned very well with what Antony Flew said. And after all this heat, then, I decided finally I had to say something. So Richard Carrier put out this big blog post talking about, how Flew did not go down the checklist appropriately. Why can't I find anything that I'm looking for here? I'm just deleting stuff and it just keeps on coming. I mean, did I delete the other thing? This is ridiculous. We're just going to open it up again. Because I know I'm going to need it. Goodness gracious. All right, so here we go. So you see Richard Carrier holding his letter triumphantly. And so I just couldn't resist. I held up my letters triumphantly. And just, yeah, had myself a good time with it. Yeah, here I am in all my glory. Those were good days. So I do have this article linked in the book description. Yeah. And there was a lot of heat, took a lot of flack, but the interesting thing out of all that is that in the end, it just went away. Like they just stopped talking about it. Carrier did reply once. I saw a reply about how he was going to respond to my nonsense or something or another, but he never did. And as far as I know, there's no one today who really believes that Flew had lost his mind so much that the book that was actually released did not represent his viewpoints. So that's my little contribution of helping to establish the veracity of the integrity of the final views as we understand it of Antony Flew. And before I bring in my guest here to talk about this, I did publish the letters on in an ebook on Amazon. This is also linked in the description, so you can see the letters. And before we're done, I'll show you a couple of the images so that you can see what kind of bad handwriting this man had. So anyway, I think without further ado, we're going to bring in our guest. Let's see here. I know he's ready. And I got to unmute him. Mr. Daniel Capitanu. How do you say it?
Capitano.
Okay. We might have a little bit of feedback coming through. Say something again.
My name is Daniel Capitanu.
Oh yeah, you. Okay, so you sound great coming across the live stream. It's just in my own headphones. So yeah, so you found me because of these letters, because of this controversy. So why don't you share your own like experience with the whole controversy regarding Antony Flew, and then if you want, you can talk about how it led to me.
Well, hello, Tony. I'm glad to be here with you, and it's an honor. Thank you very much. So it would be a long story to tell to the people how I came in contact with this subject. But long story short, I was doing research for my conference to present in churches and in a few television events in francophone world, if it was possible. And during the research I found you not only on that blog but also on Wikipedia.
Oh right, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I told myself maybe I should contact this guy. I was talking about you.
Uh-huh.
To ask him the permission to use his name and to use his materials during my conference. And so I came to know you better, and I'm very glad we are friends since then, because even in my conference I mention you, and maybe you don't remember, but I also mentioned, Antony Flew in Theology and Falsification used that image of, a little flower camp that was not very sure it was a garden
Right,
or
right.
it was something wild,
Right.
and the people was arguing what was it a gardener or not.
Yeah.
So you told in another light, you turn it in another light, that our world actually is looking more and more like a Versailles, a garden,
Yes.
instead of a wild camp,
Yeah.
and it's up to the atheists to to show us why is that so. It's our world without a gardener, where it looks like Versailles or Disneyland,
Yeah.
passage. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So the just to talk about the Wikipedia thing, I was on the Anthony Flew page for the Wikipedia for some time, but then someone hacked my website for Anthony Flew, um, and it got like I didn't know that it had gotten hacked, and so they took it off of Wikipedia for their own good, right? I don't blame them for that. And then by the time I figured it out, um, I'd lost, there was no way of getting back on there without me myself putting it on there, and of course, you know how Wikipedia is about doing stuff for your own name or whatever. So I just gave up on it. So I did actually just today, finally after all these years, cleaned up the site, got rid of the hacker. He's out of there, and maybe I'll rebuild the site. So you bring up a good point about the gardener analogy, this story. So like, um, that was kind of like Flew's thought was, is the world a carefully curated garden, in which case it would imply a gardener, or is it just the wildlands? And the thing that was going on in the world from 1995 to 2005 was the slow realization by the scientists themselves, prompted in large part by the intelligent design people, that the genome and the origins of life themselves, that issue was pointing squarely at there being a god, a gardener, as it were. And Flew was like, well, follow the evidence. If that's, if that's what the evidence says. So he was a man of his conviction. I think we have to give him credit for being willing to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's very important to point out that his conversion, was not a betrayal of his atheistic legacy, actually, but a fulfillment of his core philosophical principle, the Socratic principle, as you mentioned, actually. Uh, and in his book, in chapter 2, there is a quotation I would like to share with you. He said, "My whole life has been guided by the principle of Plato's Socrates. Follow the evidence, whatever it leads." So this is the main, engine behind his behavior, behind his public, behavior,
Yeah,
and this is why he's the old school guy.
yeah, right.
So it's yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So, which book was that quote from just now? Was that the
yeah.
last one?
It's the last one. There is a God.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and well, what I would like to say is that this principle defined his whole career. So not only he was allowing the evidence uh, to show him the best way to take in, but also the Socratic principle require a man-to-man approach. This is why he committed himself to reply to every single objection, to reply to every and each letter. Then this is why you had that privilege, actually.
Yeah.
And if you are curious, just roll to a new atheist, and you're gonna see the chance they reply are minimal. It's not the old
Right.
the old school of behavior in
Yeah.
there is no civility. It's hooliganism,
Yeah.
actually.
If they did reply, they
Yeah,
probably wouldn't be able to put it on the air.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there is another thing I would like to discuss here. He Antony Flew, he firmly believed that philosophy progress not by consensus, you know,
Hmm.
but by careful clarification of arguments, uh, spotting the fallacies, and clarifying the concepts, So here is another quote: "Lack of agreement in philosophy does not mean lack of progress. Clarifying concepts and methods, it's real advancement." This guy was a wonder in philosophy world. Why? Because this world of philosophy, it's a very dark and boring environment where everybody thinks that everything is futile.
Hmm. Yeah.
There is no optimism over there. He was actually the only optimist there, thinking that there could be a progress under certain condition, and one of them was to clarify the language, to clarify the concept, to identify the fallacies, and consensus or not, once you have a concept defined with precision, now you have a progress.
Sure.
And he was the adept that the language, the common language, should be used in philosophy in order to to make it democratic, to make everybody uh, part of the discussion in a certain point. And this is how we should progress. All of the Southern philosophy is not the realm of some elites, but the round table for everybody to show that show interest in such subjects,
Yeah.
which
So
is which is absolutely unheard.
yeah, and that attitude really played well in the wild west of the internet days, from 1998 to 2005. Everyone could be heard, uh, and it's too bad that there were people who used that opportunity to just be angry all the time at what. But at any rate, um, that's just a thought that came to my mind. Um, so the if the origin of life that really seemed to be something that was a big catalyst for him, the a lot of people even today mock like the intelligent design argument. um, Francis Collins, who's an actual Christian, mocks intelligent design, which is crazy because he helped map the genome. But Flew seemed to be uh, I'm not saying I don't know if I would go so far as to say like he was completely won over to it, but he thought it was serious. Like, yeah. So, do you want to talk about that?
Well, there is the core of this discussion here, yeah. Because the fact that Flew shifted from the atheism to a form of theism, which is deism actually,
Yeah.
uh, was not something accidental. It was the fruit of his research during his entire life. So he actually, uh, and there is a quote about the DNA, and it's found in his latest book, There Is a God, the chapter 7. What I think the DNA material has done is that it had shown by the almost unbelievable complexity of the arrangements which are needed to produce life, that intelligence must have been involved in getting these extraordinary diverse elements to work together. So why? Because the life itself, it's so complex, it's so, you know intricate, that there are so many complicated things, little machinery, nano machinery, that are working together, and everything is possible because actually a numerical code uh, that is stored in the DNA molecule,
I'm sorry.
which is which is so incredibly complex
Wait. Can
that
you? I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you? I didn't understand. You said something. The miracle code. Something was embedded. I missed it.
well, it's a numerical
Oh,
code.
numerical. Numerical.
It's
Got it.
it's it's an it's an it's a digital form.
Okay, I got you. I'm with you.
Yeah. Why? Because all that three four elements that are the letters of the DNA form a code a code that it's used like a language. There are sentences, there are paragraphs, there are chapters over there, and it works like a functional language. And you cannot just say this is the fruit of the you know of random chances.
Yeah.
That would be crazy to say that. If you understand how it works,
Right.
and this is what has struck him in a way that he had to to reevaluate everything he thought about life. So this is one of the reasons why he turned to theism. So the DNA, but there are a bunch of lot other reasons, you know. And
Yes.
we
So
could.
it was interesting. At the same time was when Richard Dawkins was saying things like, like in his answer to Ben Stein about where life came from. He talked about, well, maybe it came from outer space with direct panspermia, um, or maybe it was like encoded on or found on rocks, or crazy stuff, and like that's all pure speculation. So if you are saying things like that, you're no longer talking about something that is scientifically and empirically demonstrable. And I think that if I read Flew right, from the 1950, like during the period that he was an atheist, that 50 years, that he believed that the biologists really were on the verge of solving that question, of having the answer, and he just kept going and going and going. Finally, those guys, they'll get to it. The biologists will get to it. But then in the 90s, it was like the biologists were never going to get it, right? It's like it's over, and so he basically surrendered to the logic of what you just said. Like, your alternative is to conclude that you just can't do it without a super intelligence,
Yeah,
or
this. Yeah.
there's space aliens, I guess, right?
Yeah, but the matter with space aliens is just you just push the problem a
Right,
little bit further.
right.
You just don't get rid of it. You just can't solve it. Everything it's a form to place it under the carpet, you know.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a real solution, because you have to explain at the same at a certain point where the alien life came from.
Right. Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter how you put it. You are just turning in circles, and it's ridiculous, you know.
Yep. So in our email correspondence, you mentioned that some of the proponents of the intelligent design movement, like Berlinski and Meyer, do you know, did they have any direct connection, influence wise, on Flew?
Well, actually, uh, what was interesting about Berlinski, what was the notion of the code. Because when we are talking about the code, Berlinski noted that the code is something arbitrary. It's something that should be chosen. You connect elements from a group with another elements with another group. That could be done in a various very variant, but the fact that that has been choose one single variant, that means an arbitrary decision. And this is the first thing about the code. The other thing about the code that Berlinski noted was that this code acts like a language, We just talked about that.
Yeah.
And how is that possible to talk about that without involving intelligence?
Yeah.
This is the question Berlinski asked, and the answer was obvious. Berlinski was very much involved in not only in philosophy but also in mathematics. And just you cannot just hide yourself. Everything it's in plain view. So the question, put it on under the spot, the core of the problem. You know, the meaning of the DNA. It's so obvious. You just can throw it in the air by saying, oh, it's just random chance.
Right. Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. Boy, there's so many places we can go with that. But like he, when here's where I'll go. It's just getting worse. Like the whenever they learn something more about the genome, it only makes the problem even worse for the people that are like, well, if you have enough time and the conditions are right, then it's possible. They won't even say, well, yeah, it definitely happened, because it's completely unfalsifiable. But everything they're learning about like gene folding, and it's just the way that it all works together to not only build an organism, but then to build the organism so that the organism can reproduce, right? Which is remarkable. Like, our computer is great, right? There's a lot of code, but can you imagine the kind of code that would have to go into your computer that would also allow it to reproduce and make a whole nother computer? I mean, that's just astonishing. And every development, every innovation, it puts the idea that of abiogenesis, of life coming from nothing, even further into the realm of faith.
yeah, but what is interesting about life, it is the fact that it was engineered. It was created. It's obvious, and uh, the secret of the life reside in information.
Yep.
The fact that there is an information that is stored in that molecule, not only in that molecule. Actually, we have a different layers of information storage. It's not only DNA. It's about, for example, the way that uh, the machinery of the cell send the parts to the other place of the cell, through a system of rods, of an autobahn.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that it require its own information. There is no DNA, there is no that kind of information in DNA. It has his own information storage system. And uh, there are information at the other level, in organism, in living organism, that is not storage only in DNA. So there is all this stuff working together. The problem with that is that it's like the approach of scientific community is like this funny approach that trying to understand the message of Shakespeare, works by analyzing the paper and the ink
Right.
on it
Yeah.
to understand what it's all about. It's just silly.
Yeah.
You cannot just take the material to understand how it works and decide how it originated, because the problem is the meaning of the information.
Yeah.
You have to understand how the information came, because in a certain point, the material support is irrelevant. The
Yeah.
problem is the information. It's like sending you a message. I could send you by a letter. I could send you by a fax. I could send you by email. It doesn't matter the support. What it matters is the fact that I am sending you an information. This is the main the main factor of the discussion, and this is what Flew tried to tell to his former colleagues, atheistic colleagues.
Yeah. So you, in your note to me, you actually said he had a critique of the new atheists and their materialistic assumptions. Is that what you're talking about right now?
Yes, actually, the critic. Yes, yes. This is what I'm talking about, and I would like here to point out that actually there are a lot more things about that, because for example, there was a discussion. Anthony Flew had a polemic discussion with Dawkins. It was about his work, selfish genes.
Mm-hmm.
Flew noted that there is no such a thing as a selfish, as a moral characteristic, of genes. Genes are not something that has character. There is no autonomous and um, how could I put it? There is no agency in genes.
Right. Right. Yep.
So how could you tell that such a thing, which is actually it's a metaphor, a popular metaphor, a metaphor, to take it seriously
Yeah.
and to try to persuade people that actually genes are selfish. This is nonsense.
Yeah. I think what Dawkins brought to the table for a lot of the new atheists was that he gave like a different frameworks for hope that someday they could actually empirically demonstrate some of these things. and
Yeah,
and I
and
think the selfish gene was an example of that.
this is one of them. The other one is that there is those things that we call them consciousness, rationality. These are unanswered questions. When we are talking about consciousness, there is this subjective awareness about ourselves, and with their tools, conceptual tools, the materialism and naturalism are not able to grasp what is that consciousness. They cannot talk about rationality. This capacity to formulate an abstract reasoning. They cannot talk about the intentionality and purpose of life. This is the core problem of the discussion when we are talking about life.
Yeah.
So this is where Antony Flew concentrate his attack.
So let me take a second here and touch this back to the debate that was covered in my letters
Hmm.
here. Let me go back to this screen here. Let's get rid of that for a second. And I'll put you on the screen this time. There you are. Now that you're meant to be here. So this is a uh, Carrier, when he was going after and criticizing um, Antony Flew, he you have to kind of go back and read what Carrier wrote, but he's talking about this sentence: the real author. Carrier is saying the real author of Flew's book is what he's saying. This is really funny, really. Carrier is saying the real author of Flew's book not only has no knowledge of my crucially irrelevant interactions with Flew, even beyond this one example, he also thinks Flew's biological scientist friend, who corrected him on the science of biogenesis, which is what we're talking about, was Richard Dawkins, when in fact it was me, which is just a crazy kind of thing. But in my letters with him, I'll get rid of that. This was in the letter here. Yeah, you can see it here. At the very end of his second letter, Flew writes, Dawkins is, I believe, out of date in his biology. And then this is remarkable. Flew says, I am trying to get a copy of his latest book, which I expect to attack in response to his recent contemptuous but unfounded attack on me. But I guess Richard Carrier would say he was actually referring about him and not Dawkins, right?
Yeah.
So Dawkins is like really got under Antony Flew's skin, is the way that I read that. So that's just sort of another kind of interaction back with, to that controversy.
Yeah, Tony, the problem is that what makes noise attract people's attentions, and this kind of debate monopolize everything, you know.
Yeah.
So because it's very vocal, it's very widespread, and people are getting excited about that. And this is a problem, because what is loud is not always the essential part of the discussion.
Yeah.
In order to understand to grasp what is all about, we should calm ourselves and to consider everything that is brought in the discussion in a calm manner. And this is not possible in this environment. And I think it's because the new atheist experience a sort of panic. Once people like Antony Flew defected the atheist camp and went to the other part, on the theistic camp, as you said, what's going to happen next? Who's going to be the next one?
Yeah.
Because they always thought that materialist and naturalist and atheist philosopher has this monopoly of the intellectual big caliber, big figure, and the other parts, the theistic one, are just cheap labels,
Right.
On the market. So, and when Antony Flew changes his mind, this reasoning turn against them, actually. And another topics of this discussion was that Antony Flew was discussing not with the people like Dawkins all the time. That
Right.
it was only incidental and once in a while. He was talking about people like C.S. Lewis,
Mm-hmm.
Swinburne, people like this bishop. We found it in the Annex B of this book. His name is N.T. Wright. This bishop. It was very solid, argumentation about the resurrection of Jesus Christ that impressed actually Antony Flew. This is why he published in his book. And we are talking about discussion like um, I would like to point out, for example, people like let me see. Uh, no, well, I'll be with be. Bear with me, please.
Okay.
Uh, is this Nobel laureate George Wald, who wrote A Pre-Existent Mind, is the matrix of the physical reality, and he accepted and he aligned his philosophy with the world. We're talking about high standard figures here, not
Right.
only new atheists that are very color, very vocal, they're very loud, and they're not covering actually the main topics. This is one of the observation he made about them. They just return to the old logical positivism that imploded
Hmm.
in the second part of the 20th century, and it's meaningless to return to in positivism, because the problem with positivism is it is unable to explain whatsoever.
Right.
We are talking about people like David Conway. uh, we, he was actually by he was not mentioning, but works of Stephen Meyer was actually very well known by Antony Flew. We just mentioned Berlinski. We are talking about Paul Davies. This is
Hmm.
not people like Richard Dawkins,
Right. Yeah. So what's interesting about like all of that is like you've just thrown out a bunch of names that a lot of people don't even like, they're just forgotten. Like no one even, like Paul Davies, right? He was a very big name in the 1990s, and I think that like there's like this constant wave of information that continues to roll over society, and it washes away all of the voices that have come before them. And so all we get every day is a cacophony, just chaos of new loud voices. And tomorrow it'll be another group of loud voices blocking this group out. And so if you want to get to the truth of anything, you have to do what you said earlier. You have to calm down. Ideally, you should read a book. um, Turn off the television, put the phone away. And this is one of the reasons why I have structured the podcast the way that I have. We don't do current events, or not explicitly. We explore these old ideas because otherwise they just get forgotten. But we know, you and I know, that um, that old story about I forget who said it right now, about the materialist scientist who climbed the mountain, the high peaks of knowledge, and he got to the very top, and there was a bunch of theologians sitting there, you know. And it's not necessarily, you don't have to buy that whole paradigm to appreciate the fact that all of the debates that have animated Christian theism and Christianity, they're still there. Like they thought, the materialists of the 1990s and whatnot, they thought that when science had finally marched far enough, all this Christianity stuff, all the religious stuff, the problem of consciousness, it would be settled. But actually, those problems are just as difficult today as they were even 100 years ago. They're the same problem. They've only gotten worse for the materialist.
Yeah, think about the problem of multiverse.
Yeah, sure.
The problem was when science became aware of the fact that the universe is expanding, the fact that it's expanding, that means that once you put it backwards, you start to go backwards of this expanding. That means was that the universe was less and less big, this once it was smaller and maybe very small, and that means that it must have a beginning somehow. So how it started, then the theory of Big Bang, I'm not a fan of that theory. But I'll let you know that there are some unbelievable stuff over there. It's so unbelievable what they said about the beginning of the universe, that I can't buy it,
Yeah.
But anyhow, there was a beginning, and they were somehow aware that there is that beginnings. So how how could we explain in the fact with the fact that this universe is so very well, very fine tuned in, and there is no just few parameters. There are 30 of more parameters of our physical universe that are so fine tuned, so interconnected with each other, that we cannot hide from this question. How is that possible
Yeah.
with just random chance, when if you just move a little bit one of the 30 parameters, that will bring chaos in our universe?
Right.
So everything must be explained somehow. So they came with this theory that Antony Flew find it very very funny. Why? He told about this theory that is like when a student came in front of his teacher explaining that a dog ate his homework notebook, and once he noticed that his teacher and his colleagues was they don't believe that, he noticed, he told them that actually that dog was with a bunch of other dogs, so many that we cannot number them. So the problem is that, would it be more credible?
Yeah.
This is what the multiverse does, because when you bring the multiverse, the problem just explode
Yeah.
instead of solving it.
Yeah.
You just have to multiply actually the explanation with the number of universes that are popped out by
Right.
some kind of machinery. How do you explain the machinery that pop up the
Yeah.
universe,
Well.
so this kind of stuff was addressing to his colleague atheists, in order to make them understand that he was not just an old guy that was afraid of dying, and
Hmm.
because of that he became religious somehow, and he was persuaded them to follow him. There was not such a thing. He was actually not afraid to die. He was not religious. His new theism was actually a very philosophical one, not something that is connected with Christianity. As far as I know, and I think you agree with me, he was never a profess, a Christian.
Yeah. Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so he was not afraid to die like that. But the reasons, the proof in the science was so powerful that he has no other choice but to follow them in that
Hmm.
sense, and became a theist.
Yeah. So I think what it's worth mentioning here, like we're talking about the character of the man here. in the fact that he was willing to reply to anyone. I think that there's an element of his trajectory of the relationships that he had with the people that you mentioned. Like I know that he interacted with C.S. Lewis. I don't know if I don't think he was a friend or anything that I'm aware of.
No,
Um,
no.
but I think he was friends with Richard Swinburne. He was friends with Gary Habermas. He may have been friends with Varghese. I don't know how to say his name. One who he wrote the book with. And I think those personal interactions, which were favorable, made it easier for him to give theistic and intelligent design arguments a fair
Mhm.
shake.
Yeah, it was about Richard Swinburne.
What was about Richard Swinburne?
Yeah, he and Flew has a long-standing dialogue.
Okay.
In the because Richard Swinburne was one of the most respected contemporary philosopher and of religion, and this is why he was very fun to talk with him. And they actually they wrote a book together,
We have
if
a
I'm not mistaken.
we have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Um, did Flew ever directly interact with N.T. Wright? I think he did, but I don't know for sure. N.T. Wright and Flew.
Well, when we read his books, his later book, There Is a God, in the Appendix B, Flew actually engaged a formal dialogue with Bishop N.T. Wright, which is a renowned New Testament scholar. So, although Antony Flew didn't become a Christian,
Yeah,
this is where things is it's interesting because he recommended the work of N.T. Wright.
right. Well, the question is, did they, not did he interact with the ideas, but did they, as men, did they interact? Um, the AI, Google A's AI says no. So apparently AI has the answer to that question, JB.
Yeah, but he actually so Flew wrote to N.T. Wright, and he replied, and
Ah, okay.
when he replied, he actually put his article in the appendix B of his
Oh,
book.
so that is Wright's reply in the
Yes.
book.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a whole article, and it's very interesting about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And what is very interesting about that, it's he shows that people don't change, beliefs about death actually. And the fact that the Christians were most of them were Jews, and they started to believe in the resurrection of people, you know, prior to the last resurrection, what the of the end of the time. This was something new, and it was very strange. People don't do that. The people are, usually don't change, their belief about that. They don't switch like that.
hmm
And it was because there was something very important that happened, that triggered this change. And this is what N.T. Wright, Bishop N.T. Wright, point out in his article that is in the book of Antony Flew.
Yeah, I think before we get done with this, I'm gonna have to jump up and grab the book off my shelf and look at it. It's been at least 20 years. I cannot believe when I was telling you, when I sent you the link, I had written in there, 10 years ago this happened, and then I was walking around and something in my head said, I think it was longer than that. And so I had to like stop and like actually do the math. What year is it now? What year were Flew's letters? Holy cow, that was 20 years. Anyway, so it's been that long since I've read the book. So I want to if I can find it after we're done talking a little bit, maybe I'll give you a chance to do like a closing speech, and then I'll go in and see if I can find it real quick.
Well, Tony, I'm not talking about only about Antony Flew just because I'm so fan of his personality, and I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a creationist. Uh, Intelligent design, it's very good for people that are at the beginning of understanding the notion of God. You know, but to me it's not very interesting. But the fact that it's important to discuss about that is because that his changing of mind, it's a sign of times. There is something that is going on over there right now, and I mean, in the broader society, in the Western world, there is something about to change. We are on the verge of something, and it is in the air. And why I'm talking about? Because I came from a francophone world, you know, and you guys in the anglophone world, you are not aware maybe, but the francophone world is responsible for what is going on since the last 70 years in the Western world, because the main framework of thinking was fabricated, was manufactured in the francophone world at the beginning of 18th and 19th centuries. It calls enlightenment, and it's going on and on with philosophers like Paul Sartre and so on and so forth, André Camus, and others, and they've fashioned the concept in such a way that the Western world was contaminated, so much so that we are right now in a sort of cultural captivity, something like that, you know.
Mm.
So if you want to get rid of it, if you want to reopen, the gates, and to make people thinking free for themselves without without being, under the pressure, cultural pressure, academic pressure,
Hmm.
just thinking for themselves, we should find ways somehow, and if you want to act in a smart manner, we should invest in what's happening in francophone world, because everybody is in his own, you know, own backyard. But the problem comes from everywhere, and especially from the francophone world. And we should be interested to have a dialogue, a platform of dialogue over there, in the
Yeah,
francophone world.
right. So that's where you're talking in particular about how you would very much like to see a renaissance in Christian engagement in France and in French speaking countries.
Well, not necessarily Christian, because they're very they don't like Christians actually, but but at least, to have access to intelligent design keywords,
Mm.
you know
Yeah.
to open their awareness about things that happen in science, and the change in worldview that it's going on in the anglophone world. You know, this is why it should be a very important thing to consider this, for Americans to put their effort and their means in order to have a platform in the Francophone world, because we are not very much aware, but there are a lot of ripples coming from the Francophone world. Even we are not aware, they keep coming.
Yeah. So what the captain here is referring to is his a personal passion that he has for bringing intelligent design books to the French speaking world. So if you didn't understand, kind of like that's the prism that he's speaking from right now, and he's making the argument that that even though the French speaking world seems far away from American thought or whatnot, that there are ripples of consequences that do flow from France and the French speaking world into our culture. Did I represent that well?
Yeah, very much on the point, because there is a fact that the academic world, the academic circles are interconnected.
Hmm.
So every discussion about theism should start on the holy land of atheism, which is France. If we don't do that, we just keeping, in the desert, around and around. We are just not finished the trip. We should start right over there, and having a platform of dialogue, to spark, this change. And once it started, we gonna see a continental drift, continental shift that is going to happen. It must happen. And if it's not happening right now, in this very context, right now, it's going to be very hard later.
Hmm.
And we should act right now, actually.
All right. Well, I'm sure that we will talk about that again at some point. Um, I want to. We're past the time. I know we started late. So that's not a really big deal. But I wanted to make sure that I gave people an opportunity to see one of Flew's letters to me, at least part of it. So I'm going to switch over to that, and I'm going to have to activate my microphone over there, which I guess dropped off on me. But here we go. So that, in case you're wondering, is actual chicken scratch. That's you've got Hebrew, and you've got this. Um, I remember like just going word by word to try to transcribe that. It was fun. So, but he wrote it in his own hand, and I was really honored by that. And when I wrote to him, because I heard that this is the way he corresponded. It was one of the few times in my life since being a kid that I actually wrote a letter in my own hand, and I made so much effort to make sure it was legible. So I succeeded. JB says it seems readable. You think so? Well, I suppose. Yeah. What do you think when he says, "Fortunately, though I am 83 and well," and then parentheses DV? What do you think that means? I don't know what the DV means. Anyone have any ideas?
No.
Okay. So I'm gonna let you wrap it up, and I'm gonna jump up and just see if I can get that find my copy of his book real quick. So let me just kind of get this ready here. And actually, does anyone have any questions or comments? I haven't asked that yet. We did have a couple comments before, but I felt that our conversation kind of covered it, so I didn't really come back to it. Is it an abbreviation for God willing? That's what one of the commentators says.
Yes, sorry.
One of the commentators says that the abbreviation in this letter here, where it says 83 and well, DV, um, could mean Deo Volente, which means God willing.
Oh, that
So
would be interesting.
that would be ironic, wouldn't it? Interesting.
Well, actually, Antony Flew came from, this is interesting. It came from a Methodist family. His father was a very renowned pastor in Methodism. He was a professor in New Testament, and he was a scholar of highest order. You know, he was implied in exams not only in England but also in Germany. And this is how Antony Flew and his mother went to Germany to be with the father of Antony Flew in Germany. And this is how he was horrified by Nazis over there, by their attitude against Jews, against there was something that terrified him, and it was one of the reasons he didn't believe that God is in charge actually of our world, that because the evil was endemic,
Mm-hmm.
and Germany was the fact that he was in the Christian family impacted him very much, especially that father was a very intelligent scholar that instilled in his kid, in Anthony, the desire to understand, the desire to know more and more. And he was very much inclined to read and to understand things that was written in books. And when we see Deo Volante, I'm not exactly how it pronounced. It's a reminder of his vocabulary acquired in his family,
Yep.
and this is
Right.
very interesting.
Yeah. So I'm not going to get up and look for that book. I'll just bring it up some other time. I want to know because it has been so long since I've read it. Like, I knew that N.T. Wright's Resurrection was treated in there, but I did not remember that it was actually N.T. Wright that had written that thing. So that part of it. So I'm very curious about that. Do you have any final things you'd like to say, Captain, before we sign you off for the night?
Yeah, please consider this. The Francophone world needs more than ever, a sort of impact inside. We call it un coup de barre. That means a strong hit, you know,
Hmm.
because people over there are just sick and tired of this secular rigidity. We can call it, secular integrism, if you want to know.
Well, I'm sorry. What was that word? What was it?
Integrism. What does it mean, integrism? There is to put everybody in the same box.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
there is there is a kind of single way of thinking over there, and this is materialism and naturalism. No other way allowed. And I think people are just sick and tired by their lack of tools to have an enlightened dialogue with atheism and secular philosophers, scientists that are very strong in the francophone world.
Okay.
So we should somehow help them And I think that that translated key works of intelligent design and philosopher like testimony, like the philosopher Antony Flew, could help them. And anyway, I have a project, to have such a printing house, and to help people with that kind of works,
All right.
and more.
So yeah, definitely sometime we'll have you back, but we will make sure that we have you back sometime to talk about that explicitly. So, but for now, we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna push you off to the side while I close things up, and if you hold on after I wrap things up, I'll just chat with you for a couple minutes. All
No
right?
problem. Yes.
Okay. So I gotta make you go away. I hope this doesn't hurt too much. There he goes. That was. Oh, I think I got him muted. Hopefully, hopefully I did that right. Thank you, JB. I appreciate that. We got off a little bit to start that threw me off my rocker just a little bit. I wanted to touch on something that just real quick before we sign off. That the captain brought up the people he was talking about in France not being really being fed up with the secular whatever the world is right now, sort of meaningless and hopelessness and the constant cycles of hatred and angst. Maybe I would use the word angst, and I see that everywhere. Actually, we see a rise in the deaths of despair, a lot of yep, nihilism from the comment section. Um, a lot of drinking, a lot of behaviors, drug use that and I know that we've had this with us for some time, but there's a malaise. How about that for a word? A malaise that sort of hangs over everybody. And the challenge I think that we have in that is that there is an answer to it, or there are answers to it, but they have such a bad name. Right? He said that they don't really like Christians in France. That seems about right. Although when I was in France, they treated me very kindly. They probably didn't know I was a Christian, but they knew I was an American. This is again 20 years ago. Um, Christianity has the answer to this. It does give us hope, and even though it's the hope in a world to come, that has ripple effects into this world too. And I don't think people should become a Christian just to make themselves feel good. I don't think it works like that at all. In fact, sometimes as a Christian, I can feel pretty miserable about things because I'm aware of my own sins much more than if no one had told me any sins at all. But I know that in the end, there will be a meaning and a purpose. The teleology of the universe is taking us closer to our Creator, and we can be part of that process. That's not. I don't like saying it that way. That is available to people right now if the right messenger and the right can reach them. And in our society right now, which is so attached to the outrage of the day, it's just so hard to cut through all of that. And I just where I'm kind of going with this is like one of the things that Flew had was he had these network of relationships of people, and we're losing that. I mean, we people don't go out with friends quite as much. They just connect over a video conference like this, which is I know a little bit ironic, but uh, but I think this is still better because I've known Daniel for a long time. But I started the podcast so that we could talk face to face. I mean, it's kind of what I wanted to do, and we need those face to face encounters. And I think we need to do what we can to facilitate them. Yes, because I believe as a Christian that a person's salvation is on the line, but also there's other ramifications that are important. The health of society, the health and well-being mentally and spiritually of future generations, all these things can be impacted. And when Christianity can't even get a hearing, then that's a very strong solution from a historical point of view that people are denied ever being able to hear. And that's very disappointing, and I would say um, something that we should at least bear in mind when we live out our daily lives. So that was a little bit longer than I meant to be. Couple quick things here, reminders. If you wanted to get these ebooks, get rid of the image here. I do have it on Kindle. It is $6.99. That is the right price, and I'm sorry it costs so much. But something else that happened in the era of the new atheists is some of them, I will not name the name, began publishing my material illegally, and I couldn't get anywhere with any takedown notices. So as a consequence, I felt like I at least had to make them pay. If they're going to copy my stuff, they should at least pay something for it. But because of its historical value, I think it warrants it anyway. The link to this is in the description. Also, this is the website, AntonyFlew.com, that I'm going to rebuild. So hopefully you'll find links to these things there as well. I talked about that at the beginning. This article, which is on my old blog, if you want to go and read it, now is the time. In about a week or so, I'll probably take it down again. I sort of had to turn down the blog because of, if you remember that stuff about all the death threats I was getting, I know, right, over the years. Anyway, so that's in the description as well. If you want to read it, now's the time. In a week or so, it'll be gone. So let's see here. I bet you can hear me now, right? Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to enable the audio here. I was saying podcast ideas. Um, Next Tuesday, we have a new author that will be joining. A new author that we publish will be our guest. And I'm thinking on Thursday, we're going to talk about Joan of Arc. So that brings us up to speed. Thanks for watching, everyone. It's time to wrap this up and say goodnight. So, adios, amigos. Good night.